Zenimax just released the newest patch notes. Basically, I didn't do one like a video last week because there wasn't a lot to talk about. Now, so let's just quickly go through them. There's some good changes, and I will also tell you why it doesn't really matter at all at the end of the video. First off, the Warden. They gave the bear more health a little bit from 25k to 20k. Last week, after activating the ultimate, you get like, the bear gets like CC immunity for 8 seconds, snare immunity and all that kind of stuff, so that will definitely help. Sadly, we still haven't seen any buffs to Magicka Wardens, especially for PvE, because they are the weakest setup by far. Other than that, there is nothing really interesting on the Warden. They fixed a few other things, but also not really interesting. Now here, Asylum Sanctorium. Last week there were a lot of changes, or like fixes more or less. The mini trial is really fun, and I like that you can scale the difficulty. So if you have newer groups, you can do each boss one by one. If you're more experienced, you can try maybe main boss with a mini boss, stuff like that. It's still like, we have played a little bit on the PTS, and it's just the dual wheel boss is really strong, at least when you combine it with the main boss. The poison boss is kindish okay, but the dual wheel boss is completely nuts. You will see if they will still adjust from, but you can kill them one by one after, like, you don't need that long to progress through it. Kill them one by one, don't worry. It's just when you combine the bosses it gets very, very difficult. Now, combat balance. So we have the Dragon Knight reflective scales. They increase the duration to 6 seconds from 4 seconds. So now, instead of reflecting nothing for 4 seconds, you still reflect nothing for 6 seconds. Very good change. Like, this ability got nerfed. Like, you can't even reflect force pulse anymore. It's just stupid. Like, you used to be able to reflect so much. You used to be able to reflect shooting stars, which was cool. But they just seem to want to kill the fun. This for Dragon Knights. Very, very hard. Whatever. Petrify. Can cast it on CC immune enemies. They also changed that a little bit. Last patch or the first, can't remember. Yeah, same thing here. I think they mentioned in SLive that they want to remove the stun from Crystal Frags, but it hasn't been mentioned so far in the patch notes of the PTS, so I have no clue whether it's or not. Now Templar. So Templar also, especially Magicka Templar, has kind of probably the second worst damage dealer setup, sadly. Stamina Templar, on the other hand, is really freaking strong. Now increase the damage by 67%. I think they already increased the damage of this thingy last patch, so it's definitely gonna check it out. Could hit really hard. Increase the cooldown on when this damage can occur to 700. Okay. You cannot block it anymore, so it will function similar like a curse from the Zork, where you also cannot block it. Could be very nice. Can now occur on the first tick of any damage over time ability. Solar Barrage. So this here, it has a pretty long cast time, which basically kills Morph. Now grants the Empower buff after every tick of damage, instead of only when you initially cast it. That's nice. But I rather would be that this is instant cast, but doesn't give me any Empower. Because it's just, in PvE you lose too much DPS having to cast this ability. It doesn't do a lot of damage. And you don't really have any other abilities you can weave with this, so like the Empower ticks are worth it. At least not yet, maybe somebody will figure stuff out. And in PvE the radius is probably too small and it's too easy to interrupt, so in PvP, I think I said. Here They increase the cost. I mean, sure, it's very strong ability. 14%. I mean, it's okay. It sucks, but it's a really, really freaking strong ability, so why not? Because, like, it has always been like this. If you fight as a damage over time setup against a Magicka or a Stamina Templar, you're not gonna win. Because he can just cleanse all the dots and problem, no more damage. Healing Ritual. So instead of 1.5 seconds of a useless skill, you have now 1.2 seconds cast time of useless skill. Need to make it 0.5 for instant. I don't know, it's too long. Bow. 6 seconds from 5. Now this is actually nice, causing it to tick for an additional instance of damage. So if you want to do a poison build or something like that, it can be really cool. Actually worth slotting maybe. I think they also increased the damage ticks of dot from. Could be good now. Arrow spray. Duration of the snare applied by this ability. I think they mean bombard, no? Ah, okay, this is the base morph, and then base morph and bombard get the 6 seconds. And the slightly nerfed Eye of Storm. I mean, guess it was necessary. It's not really the problem though. I mean, 12% is not a lot. Probably won't change anything. Not the main issue. In the last patch, they also made it so heavy, medium, light. You can only use Harness Magicka if you're in light armor. You can only use Immovable if you're in heavy armor. You can only use Shuffle if you're in medium armor. It's actually pretty good balance change. Everybody runs around in heavy armor because heavy armor builds are outperforming everything else. One of the reasons was Shuffle, although some of the builds already did not utilize Shuffle anymore. But I've seen quite a lot of people QQ about this. I do think it's a good change, because a tank shouldn't be allowed or to avoid all incoming damage. You're there to tank. You're a tank. You should absorb damage. At least that's my opinion on it. Because now a heavy armor build can dodge roll as much as a medium armor build, which is just stupid. One of the big reasons why they can. I mean, I explained this a little bit in the podcast. You have the very cheap ultimates, support the like defensive ultimates like Sword and Boar, rest ultimates. And what people do is they use the ultimate, then by the time the ultimate is over, they already have a lot of ultimate again. They drop low health. They use Vigor, dodge roll 1-2 times. They're back to full health. They use the Sword and Board ulti. That's the reason you can't kill any of them. It's just way too easy to avoid damage, even though you're a tank. And obviously, the problem is also there's way too many good sets for heavy armor that increase like the weapon damage. Avature, Fury, it's just insane how much weapon damage overall get. Like, there is a weapon damage modifier in medium armors, you get 12% more weapon damage. But you will end up with more weapon damage on a heavy armor build than on a stamina build. That's the funny thing about it. Because you get better sets, you have the rough passive. Like the rough passives gives you 200 weapon damage. That's more than 12% from your shitty ass medium armor. Now what else do we have here? Now this is kinda wrong. Reverted this champion passives well back to 15% at 100 points. Now reduces all resource restore effects on the enemy. Potions, sets and ability passives. That's really strong. I'm 100% sure this will be bugged because it affects so many things and they probably forgot half the stuff to actually make it change. Now, Dynamax still has the problem. Champion points versus non-champion points. Now for me, the non-champion points campaign is way better because it lags a lot less. The game just performs better, so I'm not really mad about this change, because the CP campaigns are a laggy mess anyway, and who the fuck plays on this shitty mess? Plus, on the CP campaign, you also have all those unkillable builds, and on the no CP campaign, you might also have them, but a lot less, because it requires a little bit more brain capacity to actually not die or group. Then Nightblade, there was a few changes to this ability. I'm not really a good Nightblade player. I haven't leveled up my Magic Nightblade. I haven't PvP'd with a Magic Nightblade yet, so I have no clue whether this new ability actually will be good or not. But I heard it takes away health on activation, which is kind of weird. But Zorks, nothing particular. Then the Templar, those are only fixes and improvements. Now item sets. I already talked in the first thing. Maybe I will do another video on Master, Maelstrom and Asylum weapons, because they got huge changes. A lot of people thought they got nerfed, but they actually got buffed. Some of them, now there's even more. So we have Chaotic Whirlwind. 12 seconds instead of 10 seconds. Now, why doesn't that change anything? So in PvP, it doesn't matter whether a dot holds 12 or 10 seconds, because enemies just gonna purge it. So it could last 100 seconds, nobody would give a shit. In PvE, the rotation is simply too complicated, and you benefit more from having another set bonus set. The imperfect versions are still a joke. Like it looks like to me like Zenimax is afraid of really creating imperfect versions. Like if the perfect version gives you 12 seconds, imperfect version should give you 6 seconds at the maximum. It actually could be called imperfect, because now people are just gonna farm the normal mode for this, because who cares if it's 12 or 10 seconds? Doesn't matter. Clever Alchemist procs now that you're in combat. Lazy fix in my opinion. Increases item sets cost reduction destruct touch to 30% from 12. Now that's a huge cost reduction increase, which is good, and increase the bonus with direct damage to 2k. I still don't know why they don't buff the damage over time effect of this ability and only the direct damage portion, because the damage over time effect is still weak compared to all other dots. But now at least it's not over expensive anymore, so it could be nice on some certain builds, I guess. Yeah, Red Mountain, whatever. Timeless Blessing now causes Blessing of Protection to reduce the cost of all your healing abilities by 30% for 3 seconds. So that's a huge improvement to the last version, but still useless. I talked to the healers in Hodor and they said the Master Restoration stuff is still way stronger. They don't have sustain issues, so why would they bother with this? That's a general problem with healers, that over a year, probably over 2 years, they run around with the same gear. There's nothing new for them to farm, it's always the same gear. So Zenimax really should invest a little bit more time to actually give healers some more alternative. But it just seems they don't care. So. Oh, well, they probably care, but they're just not capable of actually giving healers some new stuff. Or just buff some useless sets. There is a lot of bad sets in this game that could require some buffs, especially the crafted ones. Titanic Cleave increases the direct damage cleave deals by 1.5k up to a maximum of 9k for each enemy hit. They need to hit 6 enemies to get 9k. That's a lot. That's like, I mean, in PvE, in trials, you don't really see two-hander builds. Not because they have worse damage, but because you just die everywhere. Because dual wield has deadly cloak, you get 25% damage mitigation, which feels more like 50 to 100% to be honest. Two-hander doesn't have that. Now at the beginning of the PTS they also nerfed one of the passives, so you cannot crit anymore for whatever reason. Two-hander was already slightly behind DPS in PvE. Now it's even worse. Now sure, this will help on trash fights, but on boss fights not necessarily. And the main issue is still damage mitigation. In dungeons and stuff like that, they're totally fine. They're fun, like they're fun to play with the Deathstroke build. I had so much fun. It was something different. Could experiment around it. Then obviously they have to drop the nerf bond on this PTS. Whatever. I mean, in the end, this is a buff to two-hander builds, both in PvE and PvP. I don't think it will affect PvP that much, because it only has a small range. Yeah. Other stuff here, I think that was more or less it. Okay, transmutation. Drop rates. Now this is the new system. I also created a video about it. Go check it out. Like you can transmute, like you can change the traits of your weapons if you want to. And I think you need 40 stones for a trait change. They are compound, so you cannot trade them. Now the weekly veteran normal mode trial quest now gives 5 crystals upon completion. Okay. Geodes award from dungeon trial leaderboards placement now 5 crystals. Placing the leaderboards in the serial will now award 10 crystals. Placing in 30 days will now award 50. Not bad at all. So if you're in a 7-day campaign, you get 10 crystals. If you get on the leaderboard, in a 30-day campaign, you get 50 crystals. So if you manage to get on the leaderboard, you can transmute 1 weapon each month more. Uncracked geodes award from Reward of Worthy now give a minimum of 4, and rarely grant as many as 25. That I like the change though. I mean, you will not necessarily have less to grind, but for PvPers, people that don't enjoy PvE, you have to do Maelstrom once. Well, not once, you have to do Maelstrom till you get the weapon you want. If it's a shitty trait, you will have the crystals. You don't need to go PvE to get the crystals, which is a good thing. So you really have to you can spend less time in PvE content that you don't enjoy, or in PvP. Still, yeah, now the stuff here. So why did I say there is some good changes, but it doesn't matter at all? Because the main issue of the game is not addressed at all, and that's performance issues. Balance. I mean, it's nice to have a balanced game, but it doesn't matter. If the game is a laggy mess with low FPS, nobody will play it. That's the main issue of the game. You go into a CP campaign, or into a no CP campaign at prime time, you will not be able to use abilities, it just lags, you disconnect, your FPS will drop to 10 or even lower. It's even worse on console, it's like 3 times worse on console compared to PC. That's the main reason why you see endgame players both in PvE and PvP quit the game. Not because the game is not balanced, it's because it has huge performance issues. And it doesn't look like they even want to fix that. I mean, don't get me wrong, there is more people playing the game than ever. It feels more empty, yes, but you need to understand, they make money from DLC content stuff, not from the DLC stuff itself, but There is new content, people come back, they buy stuff in the Crown Store. That's how they make money from the expansions each year. And there is a lot of those new people. With Morrowind, there was so many new people, and when you go into a cave, like in the darkest corner of wherever, you will find people. There's a lot of those people, questers, stuff like that. But endgame, everybody's leaving because you cannot enjoy PvP because it's just I mean, for me, it just, when I feel a delay on my abilities and stuff, it's not enjoyable anymore. Get disconnects, you have low FPS. That's the problem. That's why a lot of people leave. They don't really try fixing it. They say, if Zenimax says they are working on performance boost in Cyrodiil, all they mean by that is they're removing the population cap. Now they probably cannot fix this by 100%, but if they actually would invest time and money into that network stuff with the mega server and the engine, probably could get it to work more and more players will come back. But as long as Cyrodiil is a laggy, low FPS mess, it will never get popular again. In PvE it's a little bit different. You don't necessarily have a lot of issues with lag. There's also some disconnects and consoles have huge FPS issues. But the problem there is the game is not fun to play because they changed resource management way too much in Morrowind. The combat used to be very enjoyable, engaging. Light attack rotations, light attack ability was very fast paced. You had to be very good to actually get those things off, right rotation and all that kind of stuff. Now all that is left is slow ass heavy attack, ability, heavy attack, ability. People don't feel engaged anymore into the combat because it's slow paced. It doesn't require a lot of skill. Sure, you will still see DPS difference, but it's just pre-Morrowind gameplay. The combat was really fast paced, fun, engaging. After Morrowind, in PvE, slow heavy attack, slow paced combat. Nobody wants that. We tried to tell them. I do agree that they had to remove the cost reduction in the championship, but everything else was just over the border. I don't know. Doesn't look like they want to change it. This does. Don't see any changes here. Because the truth is, I mean, some people say, well, you can play light attack builds. Yeah, that's true. But for me, I choose what gives me the most DPS. And if I choose a light attack build, I will have 10k or more less DPS than a heavy attack build. That's the problem. So the only option is to go with a heavy attack build if you're focusing on trials. No other option. At least it's my opinion. No, there are other things like if you're questing or maybe dungeons, it doesn't matter. You can do light, like you need like 3k stem or magic recovery to sustain it. But it's not that big of a deal, sure. All the mobs die with one hit anyway. But anyway, that's just my take on it. As long as they don't fix the performance issues, nobody's gonna come back. Because the game can be an unbalanced mess. It wouldn't matter. The game, if you could play at 60 FPS at the 50 to 100 ping, it wouldn't matter. People would be here. That's basically it. I will probably cover more of this stuff because PTS is not over. The Clockwork City will launch in 2 weeks, if I remember correctly. So there might be more changes. Might overthink some stuff, change some things. Because the content they release is great. The game is good. Just the performance issue killed the fun. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Thank you for watching and see you soon. Cheers.